Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Real Point of View here on Google Plus and our YouTube channel at A Real Point of View. We are discussing, as we do all the time, a lot of films, but this week we're talking about films from the year 2015. Best and worst films. We were discussing this on our earlier show on our radio broadcast, our podcast, A Real Point of View on Blog Talk Radio, and we're going to revisit some of that stuff here for our audience here on Google Plus and on the YouTube channel, but also talk about a little bit about the Golden Globe Awards that have just passed and the winners there, and then talk about some of the nominees that are going to be for the upcoming Academy Awards and who's been nominated for Oscars for that venue. So why don't we jump back into our conversation about best and worst films. So, and a brief overview. Larry, your best and worst film, and also this time, also talk about maybe another film or two that are your second and third film, if you have that available.
Well, my best film is only because I've been waiting for it, for 30, 40 some years. Is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. For no other reason than I've been waiting for it since the Return of the Jedi ended, and at that moment I wanted to know what happened. And it captivated me from beginning to end, and yes, I have seen it more than once, and that's all I will say about that. My absolutely worst film is the latest in the Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible films, Rogue Nation. It's the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing new. Doesn't take any risks up there on the screen. He's got a bunch of cool stunts, but outside of that, I see no value in seeing these movies ever again unless he starts doing something different with the film. Start taking some risks. Start doing things different. I know it's not the Hollywood way of doing films, but then again, Hollywood needs that. We need to be shaken up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Pay attention more to us, right?
Well, I don't know, paying attention more to us, but I like that. I'd like to get some of the credit for some of the things that we've said. I think we all would. But I think the important thing is for our viewers and our listeners, so that they get better films.
Yeah, when I said us, I meant the consumer. Not just the three of us, but the consumer. We're the ones who are paying the money to go see the films. We're the ones who are looking for the storyline to be riveting and bring us into the conversation. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
So if I have a couple other films that are pretty close as far as being my top pick. And one of them is a little film starring Kevin Costner, and it's called McFarlane USA. And it's based on a real series of events, and this small town, McFarlane, who everybody who lives there are migrant farmers, and here you got a down and out coach looking for a job, and he gets one in this place, and he learns a lot about himself, and the kids learn a lot about themselves too. But not only that, but the whole town realizes that they don't have to accept the label that the rest of the world gives them.
Right.
It's a good movie, a positive message, and it makes me want to just feel good about myself and maybe strive a little bit harder to accomplish something, and that's one of the main messages of this film.
And like you, Larry, you were talking about Star Wars. You had seen it twice. I've actually seen McFarlane USA twice for that very reason. It is a movie that makes you think, gets you to understand how people are in other places in the world, and also it's very it helps you to aspire. I think is a good way to say it. Helps you to aspire toward greatness when you know you come from a place that those things aren't necessarily or typically thought of ever occurring. And this movie brings that out, and I really enjoyed it. It was just as good the second time.
Yeah.
How
I
about you,
gotta watch
Karen?
that movie.
You do. It is definitely worth the watch for sure. So what about you, Karen? You have some films out there that were your worst and some films that were your best for 2015 that you've seen. So why don't you give us your overview?
Okay, well, quick recap. What I said on our radio show was my worst film of 2015, and there was a lot to choose from, is Fantastic Four. That movie was just an insult to movie making. I'm sorry. It just was. It was so bad. It was like bad acting from people who are good actors, like Reg
Right.
Cathy. He's an awesome actor. I don't know what he was channeling in this movie, but it wasn't good, whatever it was.
Yeah, even Miles Teller, who I had seen in a movie that was really high on a few years ago, maybe even last year, was really high on the Oscar list, which was Whiplash, and it was like he forgot how to act.
Yeah, everybody in this movie forgot how to act. I mean, Kara, oh, what is her name? Kara Rooney, or
No,
she
it's
she she played the sister. She was also in House of Cards, the Netflix series House of Cards. But anyway, she's a fine actress, but you couldn't tell it from this movie. Oh my goodness! And then just oh, it was just cheesy. It was just like how do you put together a really bad movie? This is a course. This movie is a course. Watch this movie. You too can make movies just as bad as Fantastic Four. That's how bad this movie is.
and use less money on your budget and still have the same quality.
Yes. Right, right. So you can make an even better movie by making just as bad a movie way cheaper. Exactly right. Uh,
So
so that
what else you have out there, Karen?
Well, that was my pick, but like I said, there was plenty of company. So some of my other tips of the ugh, um, award go to Black Hat, one of the most boring movies about cyber espionage ever created in the history of film. I'm telling you.
Ever.
And this comes from somebody. Greg, you said you're a comic book guy, right? And Larry,
Right.
you said you're a comic book guy. I'm like a cybersecurity person. I'm immensely interested in cybersecurity, identity theft, economic crimes, how people use computers, how they fit into our daily lives. I love that issue. I read blogs about it all the time. I listen to podcasts. I watch television about this issue. So I'm engaged. I'm interested. And this movie still put me right to sleep.
But Karen, are you interested and are you engaged?
I'm pretty interested and engaged, and it still put me right to sleep. It was just the cheesiest, slapped together love story, just and just like some stupid plot that made no sense. And I mean, Viola Davis was in this movie again, amazing actress. I mean, she should have won an Oscar by now, right? And
Oh,
she forgot to act in this movie.
I was going to say, this didn't help.
This didn't. No.
And you know
No,
the best part of Black Hat was, because I saw this film as well, ladies and gentlemen. The best part of Black Hat for me was when everybody was starting to get shot and blown up and stuff.
Right, right.
Because
It's
then
like,
I knew they wouldn't be continue to bore me for the rest of the film because they'd be dead.
right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that one gets a tip of the as well as the Man from Uncle. Oh my goodness. This could have easily gotten the worst movie award from me instead of Fantastic Four, but Fantastic Four was just that bad. The Man from Uncle, boring. I mean, apparently the 60s were cool I didn't know they were that cool, but I mean, apparently they were. But after watching this movie, you're like, no, the 60s were lame and stupid, and thank goodness we're past the 60s. Why are people trying to revisit this era? That's what you would say after watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and watching Ken and Barbie and Ken's brother, Ren, sleepwalk their way through this movie.
You know, it's funny. I saw this movie. This was one of the movies, like Larry was talking about Star Wars. I was in anticipation of this because I love the TV show, because this, ladies and gentlemen, was based off a television show back in the 60s and the 70s called Man from U.N.C.L.E. And it was a really good TV show. And so I thought, oh, wow, they're going to upgrade it and give it some modern, quips and quirks and all that stuff. And then I don't think I lasted the first 5 minutes without thinking, oh my God, I hope this gets better. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, wow, it is not going to happen.
No.
I only watched
No.
half the movie. I didn't watch the whole movie. I couldn't. It was hard. It was hard.
It was hard. It was
And
hard.
I wanted to see this film. So I agree with you. Man from U.N.C.L.E. was pretty bad, but it was not as bad as the Fantastic Four.
You know, it's interesting. I know some people that really enjoy the Man from U.N.C.L.E. film, but what's interesting is they're not nearly as they didn't come from the '60s.
Right.
You know, they came from the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
and so this is one of those things. I think that this movie's not for us. This movie is for the 14-year-old boy.
Yeah, probably so. Well, you know what? Can I interject something here? There's another film out there that's a better film that I still think would appeal to a younger crowd of people, but it also appealed to me too, and that's The Kingsman. I actually enjoyed that. It made The Man from U.N.C.L.E. be less of a pain in my side, because that took away some of that pain, because it was a better made movie. And
well, you
yet,
want to hear something really interesting about The Kingsman?
Sure.
The filmmakers decided to borrow scenes from Kill Bill, and so they literally took some, and not just Kill Bill, but a couple of Tarantino films, and they actually took some moments from Tarantino films, and saw how it was choreographed, and then they did the same exact things in this movie, The Kingsman. If you're if you're a fan of Tarantino's films, you'll either feel ripped off from this, or you'll say, "Cool." You choose. But
I was on the cool side. I liked the movie.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Karen. So you were what was another one of your films out there that you didn't like? Or was it those the three?
Those are the main ones that I hated. But let me give an honorable to another movie, and that's Steve Jobs. Okay, again, this is from someone who's engaged in, who's interested in electronics and computers, and who watches Google I/O and the Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple every single year. I take the day off from work to watch these developers conferences. That's how engaged I am. I am reading the book Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. It is immensely interesting. Okay, so I'm engaged.
However, I feel a however coming.
However, I started watching the Steve Jobs movie, and like 20 minutes in, my eyes started kind of going, like the head started nodding. I started getting really comfortable in my chair because I felt like this would be a really good time to go to sleep. Because that's how because this movie also, I mean, and it wasn't the acting. I think Kate Winslet does a fine job. I think Michael Fassbender does a fine job as Steve Jobs. Kate Winslet does a fine job as Joanna, whatever her name is, who's the vice president of marketing and like a right-hand person. It's the screenplay. You know, that screenplay that just won the Golden Globe for Best Screenplay of 2016, the Hollywood Foreign Press thought was so awesome. That was the problem with this movie. I was like, wait a minute, there's kind of like 3 acts and a concerto, and then, you know, you kind of mix them all together, but then they kind of all surround these big conferences that are going on, but then, you know, you have these personal elements that filter in. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? The only thing I got from this movie is that Steve Jobs is a crappy person because he wouldn't acknowledge his daughter. Granted, he was a shit. I mean, I don't know if I can say that, but he was. I know that.
We'll edit it out later.
Sure. Yeah. I know that. Everybody knows that. Can we get and okay, that's fine. I'm not having lunch with him anytime soon. Can we get on to the how did the stuff get made part? Because that's what I'm interested in. And that's what they didn't spend. You had the guy playing Woz, Seth Rogen, going, you know, you really need to recognize the Apple II. You really need to recognize the guys behind the Apple II. And then you had Joanna going, you know you ought to recognize your daughter. You know you ought to recognize your daughter. And that's all I remember from that movie. Thank you, Aaron Sorkin.
It's a bad film, and I knew it was going to be a bad film before it came out, only because that's the nature of films like that. So, but I've got another film that I want to rag on for a little bit, and I want you to help rag on it with me, okay? I want your help, and this is a remake.
Oh, that's already
come on, Larry, you don't need our help to rag on anything.
And this is the remake of a Keanu Reeves from a few years back called Point Break.
Oh no.
Now,
no.
I personally like the original movie Point Break.
I actually liked it too, and I'm not a big surfer movie fan, and I still thought it was pretty decent.
And what's great is that it is a chase film. It's not a car chase film, but it is a chase film, the whole thing.
Right.
And now they take this film and they slap it in the face, kick it in the groin, and then take any type of interest out of this film and add some product placement.
Placement?
Oh, it's in there. It's around in different places and stuff. It's not like in your face, you know, but it's in there. It's such a bad film, and this is one of those that you know, after watching it for a few minutes, I realized that again, I'd rather be having a root canal, and this is just after like a minute or two watching this. And I'm not saying don't watch this movie, but
no, you are saying that. That's exactly what you're saying.
If you're interested in wasting time and thinking that you'd rather be, you know, cleaning the bathroom, this movie is for you.
When they were talking about actually making this movie, I actually got upset because we find that there are a lot of movies out there that are better left alone. Why would you want to mess with something that was now again? It's not a great movie. It's a good movie, but why you want to mess with the goodness of that movie?
It was good enough.
Why would you want to mess with it? And I see that happening over and over and over again, and that really chaps my backside because I'm thinking, you know, you could be utilizing this money and this talent for something more creative and something that's new. And why keep going back to... Now, don't get me wrong, there are some movies that have been redone that are actually pretty good. But this is definitely not one of them.
Yeah. There's another really bad film out there that the only thing this has going for it is that it's a sequel, and it continues the same kind of filmmaking as the first one did, and that's Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
Well, you know what? I wasn't even going to look at that movie. And now I'm still not going to look at that movie.
Hey,
So
good for you.
maybe the other one is just beyond me in the first place.
Ugh.
It's like
You know,
they're trying to force comedy on me, and that's just ridiculous in itself.
yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Now, did either of you see Pixels?
Okay,
Nope,
I did.
I didn't.
And
Uh,
And
well, if we're going to go from a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being best. No, let's go scale from 1 to 1.
mhm.
What, no, it's not on the scale. It's really, it's not as bad as Fantastic Four. It's a
Well,
little bit,
what is?
it's a little bit better than. Um, it's really a bad movie. I tried to like it, and because I grew up with those games. I was trying to, be nostalgic, and I got to be nostalgic, and that's it.
yeah, yeah, it's not even funny.
Not even funny.
It's not
And
even fun, and
and
it's
they just
got
really.
some. Go
Oh, I was
ahead.
going to say they tried hard, and it just fizzled.
It's an epic fail.
Epic. That's
Yeah,
a good word, Larry.
it's
I
an
like
epic
that.
fail.
It's perfect for this. It was an epic fail, and yet it still wasn't as bad as the Fantastic Four.
Right,
Now I
right.
want to talk about. I'd like to talk about
Oh,
somebody who got a Golden Globe and um, and really deserved it, and that's Sylvester Stallone and,
say that again,
and his
Larry.
and his portrayal in the movie Creed.
Okay, can I say something before you continue? Because I do want you to continue, please.
Oh yeah,
A friend of mine talked to me and said he had seen Creed, and he walked up to me directly to let me know that he had seen Creed because he knows we do this podcast all the time. And I said, well, I wasn't planning on seeing the movie because, it was just another Rocky quote unquote movie. He said, Greg, he says, I know how you feel and I get that. But I was watching it, I didn't have anything to do. I decided to watch it, and then the next thing I know, I was into it. I was like, really? And so I decided to go watch it. It actually is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that in itself is something.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
go ahead, Larry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that.
No, it's a marvelous film, um, and Sylvester Stallone does such a great job as the aging Rocky Balboa, and he 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 teaches this kid, you know, and the way he acts as doing it's like taking the life lessons that Mick taught him and the life lessons that the Apollo taught him and the life lessons that all the people who punched him in the face taught him, and now he's gonna tell he's helping this kid to have a little bit of self-respect and accept himself. Really, it was a good movie.
It
What
really,
about
it
Michael
really
B.
was.
Jordan? He's the poor guy who has to go into the boxing ring. What kind of acting job did he do? Because
He
he's
actually
been
did a pretty
completely
good one.
snubbed for
He
anything.
did, and he should have gotten recognition, and I
Yeah,
agree with you. But
yeah, he did really well.
that's one of the problems with these award things is that one person wins each award. What I like, go back several years. I mean, go back quite a few years when um, when the play Glenn Ross was made into a film.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a hard movie to watch. It's
Oh, it's
brutal,
awesome. It's
but
awesome.
it's a wonderful film. Please don't get me wrong, um, but it's really about the worst that we can be to each other,
That's
and
true.
and um, and the Italian Film Festival decided they're not going to give any awards out that year. They just gave all the awards to that film. All the
Hmm.
actors, the people who made the film, Mamet for the play and creating the film script, and the first time that they gave out the award for best ensemble,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and I think that's an award that the Golden Globes and the Oscars should consider. You know,
Yes, SAG does it, Screen Actors Guild.
and I think that
Award ensembles.
this is huge. So, um,
Yeah. Well, can I turn back? I know this is like a long way to Tipperary, but I didn't mention my favorite film.
Okay, go ahead. Go for it.
My favorite film of 2015, just to quickly recap, is Bridge of Spies. It's a movie starring Tom Hanks and, you know, a great supporting cast. And it's based on true events. It's based on it takes place at the height of the Cold War in 1957. And a Russian spy who's living in New York is captured by the FBI, and then while he's sort of cooling his jets in an American prison, America's stepping up its surveillance of the Soviet Union, and they're sending state-of-the-art fighter planes over the Soviet Union to photograph Soviet installations, and a pilot is shot down and captured by the Soviets. So Tom Hanks, who plays James Donovan, who is an insurance lawyer in a very Tony law firm in the Boston area, or New York, I mean, in the New York area. Tom Hanks' character is asked to negotiate a swap so that this Russian spy can go back to Russia and this American pilot can come back home. Mm-hmm. And it's so well done. It's very tense. It's taut. It's just I was just stunned with how well it's done. It was produced and directed by Steven Spielberg. And you know, I like it when Steven Spielberg does films about true events, because what I notice about him is that he honors the source material. And people don't give him credit for that, but he really does. I mean, he did Amistad. Right. And if you read the book, you find that he hewed very closely to the book. He did The Color Purple, and I read The Color Purple, and I was shocked at how closely the story that he put on screen actually honored how closely the film story kept pace with the literary story. And I thought, wow, and I really enjoyed it because of that, because the movie I was watching was the movie that was what I expected to see given what I had read. And he does this again with Bridge of Spies. You know, sure, it's based on a book, but it's based on true events, and you know, you can see the research that goes into it, the very thoughtful cinematography that goes into it, even though they did not film in Germany, they filmed in Poland. For those really depressing scenes of communist Germany, but just very, very well done and riveting. I mean, I was at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was wide awake, and I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen. And it's not because people were being shot 12 ways from Sunday, and it's not because, you know, there was enough sex to drive you to a sex club. It was because this was a really interesting piece of American history that a lot of people don't know about, and literally life and death. That's what was at stake. This was a game of brinksmanship that could have easily gone so wrong, much in the way that the Cuban Missile Crisis could have also gone so wrong just 5 years later. And the parallels are just startling. So I would highly recommend this film. Just wonderfully done. But some other movies that I really liked: Spotlight, again, another movie based on true events. It's sort of like it reminds me very much of All the President's Men because it focuses on the reporters and what they do to get the story. But it's about uncovering the efforts that the Catholic Church went to cover up the molestation of children by Catholic priests in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. very well done. Michael Keaton leads the cast in that one. Mark Ruffalo is nominated, one of the nominees for Best Supporting Actor, for his work on Spotlight. And I would also throw out Love and Mercy about Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. Really well acted movie. And Dope about this kid who kind of gets caught up in the drug trade. He's really smart. He's extremely smart. And what I love about this movie is just the way it turns all the stereotypes about drug dealers, kids in the hood, living the life, blah, blah, blah. It turns all that on its head and brings up a really interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Guenveur Smith makes an appearance, and it's always nice to see him on film because he's a consummate actor, in my opinion. So those are some of my picks for best movie, and you already heard my picks for worst movie. Most disappointing movie, Steve Jobs, definitely. It's not the worst movie because it's not a bad movie. It's just boring as hell.
Right. Well, I did want to mention two movies, the movies that I felt were the best for 2015. One being back on the comic book tip again, as I mentioned earlier in our podcast earlier on Blog Talk Radio, is Ant-Man. Ant-Man was actually a really, really, really good movie. I mean, it was exciting to watch. I love the storyline. The special effects in the film were really good. And Paul Rudd does an exceptional job as the main character. He is truly Ant-Man, and I actually enjoyed him as being that. Paul Rudd is known pretty much for being a somewhat more of a comedic actor. But in this particular film, that is a plus. It really helped him maneuver through this film, and you really like his character. He's very endearing. And so are a lot of the other characters in this, including Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas does a really good job in this film. I really like this film, and it's a positive and a storyline, and it's a positive, for lack of a better way of saying it. It just, I don't know, it just really was fun to watch. It was I could use my brain enough, and it didn't overpower anything. Nothing overpowered anything in the whole film. It was just a really good film. So I would tell anyone out there listening, this is a good film to watch, and you can watch it with your family. So it's kind of kid friendly for the most part. Now another film that I thought was pretty good for 2015, which didn't get a lot of publicity, but enough to where I was looking forward to it, and I'm a big fan of the main actor in the film, which is Robert De Niro, and that was The Intern.
Yeah, that was a cute movie. It was very sweet.
It is. It's a film where you've got a guy who's retired, but he's a guy he's a high energy guy, and just looking for something to take up the time that he has, the extra time he has. He's a very intelligent man, former executive, and he finds a flyer that's talking about a company that's looking to hire interns. But they're doing something a little different. They're hiring interns that are young and interns that are older. And so he looks at this as an opportunity to do something and be a part of something. Now, I don't want to be a movie spoiler, but the beginning of the film all the way to the end of the film, I was in focus. I had my attention all the way to the very end. So it is one of my better films for 2015. I truly enjoyed that movie.
I think it was.
Before we go on, and I apologize, Karen, I didn't mean to interrupt. Larry, it seems like your mic is on mute. Is there a way that you can take a look at that and unmute it?
There you go.
There, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, little glitch there. So, I'm sorry, Karen. What were you about to say?
I was just agreeing with you about the intern. I mean, I won't say it's the best movie I've ever seen, but I also really like this movie simply because it's a different idea. I get tired, and here comes another Maven rant, but I get tired of movies about people who are, who are like 15 going on 3 who are smarter than everybody or have lived 12 lifetimes. It's like, I'm sorry, that's a physical impossibility, okay? It is. And when you're 5, you can't possibly be smarter unless you really just did blow in from Stupid Town. You can't possibly be smarter at
Well,
5 than you will be at 55.
Well, look what they did back. Let's go back a million years.
But
And
I'm
look at
ranting, Larry.
But of course you are, and I appreciate that. And let's go back and look at a fun movie that came out in the '80s, the Home Alone, the first one. To prove your point, they didn't make the kids smarter than everybody else. They made the 2 crooks dumber.
Yeah.
And they relied on that and let in the kid's imagination. Now, how that kid got all those heavy things suspended, I'll never know. but the movie was so well made that it allowed us to forgive those things which you're ranting about. But that's okay. If the movie is good, if the story is well told, if the movie's well done, we're willing as an audience to forgive them for taking this liberty or that liberty. The movie isn't good, or if the movie's just then forget it. Then we're not willing, as an audience member, we're not willing to give the filmmakers any liberties. Our disbelief is not suspended, and that's a huge thing. So what you're saying, I agree with you. I basically what I'm doing is I'm riding on the coattail of your rant.
Well, anyway, I get tired of that. So I really do. So to me, the intern gets a tip of the hat, just because for once the center of the movie isn't somebody who is, quote, eternally young, end quote, but somebody who's been around the block a few times, has some life, has some wear and tear, because the wear and tear is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Nobody leaves this world younger than when they came in. No one does. And I get tired of movies that try to imply that somehow that's going to happen and that the only people worth listening to are ones who are young. That is ridiculous.
Well, of course, everybody's got to be young and beautiful and got their whole future in front of them. And remember, they're going to sell this movie to 14-year-olds.
In American cinema, that's what happens. It doesn't happen in the British cinema so much, and that's one reason why I like British cinema.
And this is a dollar thing, and so I think we're growing up, or these kids are growing up, not really knowing what a good movie can be. Has this been true for a long time? Maybe. That might be something worth exploring about. How long have filmmakers been, has it been since filmmakers identified their #1 audience, teenagers or younger?
My guess is that it started right around the time that the studio system started ending. Because in the heyday of the studio system, there were actually lots of movies that featured women in, their 30s and 40s who actually had interesting lives, men in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, much older, who had interesting lives, and the kids were kind of like seen and not heard, and they weren't all that interesting because they were just kids. They didn't know anything. The people who knew something, who had experiences, were the interesting ones, and you didn't stop having experiences at 25.
I think a lot of this started to happen in the mid to late '60s when it started first with the music industry. The buying power of the teenagers started to make itself known, and then in the 50s we started seeing movies. The whole world and movies changed with one name, and I'm going to say that name now, and that's James Dean. And suddenly, you've got you've got again the dollars that these teenagers are getting, and we're
From the
starting.
parents.
Yep. And so this fits in with what you're saying. Now, is that a bad thing in itself? No. But then how you use it. If you're not trying to make something better, if you're not trying to make a better story, then yeah, then it's just the same old, same old. I mean, we can go back another, 20 years or 15 years from that, and suddenly we got 20 years from that, I got all these Andy Hardy movies.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
and remember that Mickey Rooney was the #1 box office draw, but who went to see the Andy Hardy movies?
Kids.
Kids went to see him, but their parents went to see it too.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Andy Hardy, who did he always go to if there was a problem?
His dad or his grandfather.
Yeah, he always went to that male, that guy, and it's like, what do I do? How do I fix this? And
right.
And there was always a lesson to be learned from the elder.
Right.
Right. And that's probably why this movie has such an impact on me as well, because that's how I grew up. The adults had a lot of information, a lot of things that were needed to help me to evolve as a person, along with my own evolution. But these things that I needed, these things that I was asking about and try to understand and get to know, the parents had that information or guided me toward getting that information. And so The Intern becomes that movie that is so similar in scope, because this is, an intern, but in reality, this is more of a mentor than an intern. And
Right.
this person becomes that focal point for this executive of this fledgling company, trying to get people to understand her worth, as well as getting somebody there to bounce things off of. And this movie is that movie. And
right.
that's a good point you make, Larry. And I think that's, again, why I probably have an affinity for this film.
And
no, it wasn't the best film of 2015 by any means, but it was a good film, and I guess
it had something different to say. That's what I like about
it. It did, and it also gave me a little validity. It validated how I feel about life too, in that I have something to offer the older that I get, and it's just.
That is so critical, Gregory. That is so critical. We are selling the 12 and the 13 and the 14-year-olds a bill of goods to their detriment. Because guess what? If you're 12 or 13 and you're watching all these movies where all these 12 and 13-year-olds are the smartest people in the world and they have all the answers and the adults are stupid, and you're 12 or 13 and you don't feel like the smartest person in the world and you actually think adults know something, where does that leave you? It leaves you kind of like the spy who's out in the cold. It leaves you twisting in the wind. And it's ridiculous because it's so not true. It is so not true. When you're 12, you're not supposed to have any answers. You don't know anything. When you're 13, you don't know anything. And you're better off not knowing anything.
Remember, though, a 12 and a 13-year-old, they don't know that. And
well, we're not helping them by telling them that they really know everything and that they're cool.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that part. But remember, if we're selling stuff to the 12 and 13-year-old, I'm not advocating this. You're not going to treat them like they don't know anything. Now, what's also interesting on the flip side of this, one of the big concerns that Peter Jackson had when he was making the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies was would the teenagers go see it?
Mm-hmm.
And his distributors were wondering, this is fine, but yeah, but the whole Tolkien world, those are people those are baby boomers.
That's
They're
true.
they're they're not they're not millennials. They're not Gen Xers. They're baby boomers. So how is this movie? How are these movies going to sell? They sold just fine. Um, but what's interesting is, the youthful exuberance in this movie is through the hobbits, and the elder people are constantly guiding and protecting, and then
Right.
finally it takes uh, um, uh, Karen to go where you're saying is that you're finally seeing Samwise and Frodo, at death's door. They went off on their own, and now they're finding themselves at death's door. And who ends up saving them? The elders again.
Gandalf. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a very standard way of telling stories that have been around for 1,000 years, thousands of years. That the elder, the wise man, uh, um, the person who knows better has to save the final day. In Tolkien's story, yeah, Frodo kind of saves the final day, but he doesn't. He can't do it by himself. It takes Frodo and Samwise and Gollum to do it. And at the end, what does he have? He's lost his finger. He's lost his own life. Even though he's alive, he might as well not be any longer. So that again gets into that tragic element that you're talking about. Um, do we need to see more movies the way you're talking about? Yeah, we do. But first, make it a good story. If it's not a good story, it just won't work.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, we totally agree on that. Of course, it has to be a good story, and part of the biggest problem that American cinema has today is that so often projects get greenlit and they're crappy stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're not somebody that I want to have lunch with. I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care about. I'm certainly not going to care about you for 2 hours if I don't even want to have coffee with you. So
Yes.
be a person that I want to have coffee with.
You know what?
Seriously.
I have a thought here, and correct me if I'm wrong. What does this have to do with the winners of the Golden Globe and the nominees for the Oscars?
Oh, good. What a segue.
Well, here's the thing. We don't have
Let's
we don't have
let's
enough
move
time
into
to
that.
we don't have enough time to really focus a whole bunch.
I'm
So
done ranting.
was there anybody in the Golden Globes that won the Golden Globe that you didn't think deserved it, and you think maybe one of the other nominees should have deserved it? Now, Larry,
Well,
you
can
mentioned,
you run over the winners first before we answer
yeah,
that?
yeah. I was going to start with the one that Larry mentioned. This is for the Best Supporting Actor role in a motion picture, and Sylvester Stallone won. The other nominees were Michael Shannon in 99 Homes, Idris Elba in Beast of No Nation, and Mark Rylance in Bridge of Spies. Any one of those people you thought should have deserved it that didn't get it?
I think they all deserved it. I think that you had several roles that were brilliantly portrayed. Um, and I think that there are some other acting roles in there, some acting jobs in films that weren't nominated. That again, you want to say, why isn't this guy not even considered,
Mm-hmm.
or this gal not considered? Um, uh, uh, and part of me says, the Golden Globes, the Oscars, it's marketing, and it's always been about marketing. From the very beginning. If you and I tell this to people all the time, if you want to know why a film wins an Oscar as for the best picture, go and watch the first Oscar-winning movie. Watch Wings. And you will see the template right in front of you. Make no mistake. There were better films that year that came out, a couple. But this one won. And you can watch it. And where does that where does the mold break? The 1970s, they broke that mold. And they are starting to do some really edgy things. In the 1970s, the films that came out in the 70s, whether if it's the Godfather films or you know, oh God, I'm trying to think, or Jaws, or other films where they keep on breaking the way they used to do things. The studio system, Karen, you pointed out, was breaking apart and was almost completely broken apart by the 70s. So the people taking over broke a lot of rules, and they changed how films were made, and they started doing things that they've never done before. And it gave us you know a little more than a decade of some marvelous movie making.
True that.
So
who else, Greg?
Well, let's do this. I'm gonna mention the category, mention the winner, and we'll do that first, I guess. So, best performance by an actress in a motion picture drama. The winner is Brie Larson, and the movie was Room. Correct. For best performance by an actor in a motion picture drama was Leonardo DiCaprio for The Revenant. Best performance by an actress in a motion picture, musical, or comedy was Jennifer Lawrence for Joy. Best performance by an actor in a motion picture, musical, or comedy, the winner was Matt Damon for The Martian. Best performance by an actress in a supporting role in a motion picture was Kate Winslet for Steve Jobs. And as we started this segment of the conversation, the best performance for an actor in a supporting role in a motion picture was Sylvester Stallone. Now, lastly, best director motion picture was Alejandro, I never can say this guy's name right, Iratut for The Revenant. And let's see, what won for best picture? Give me a moment here. Okay, so best motion picture drama was Revenant, and best motion picture musical or comedy was The Martian. Now, do you think any of these things should have changed, or are you good with that? Or, and we want to kind of be a little brief because we want to get to the Oscars if we can.
The Martian, I don't understand how it got to be a musical or a comedy.
Me either. Me either. I didn't get that.
Dancing Green Men?
No. Lots of plants, though.
Yeah. Now, if Warner Brothers Marvin the Martian was seen every once in a while in the background dancing around,
right.
Then I'd say yes, comedy.
Right. I mean, this guy's stranded on Mars. I didn't see anything funny about that. But
wacka,
anyway,
wacka, 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 wacka.
That's just me. Okay.
Well, since it was Damon splaining, I don't mind. I think it is funny.
Now, did anybody see The Revenant?
No.
Not yet. It's on my list.
It's on
I
my
vote
list
for The
too.
Bear. I think The Bear should have gotten best supporting actor.
Well, if you were watching the trailer, if you watch the trailer for this film, The Bear is pretty much should at least been nominated.
Yeah.
Well, isn't this one based off of a real story?
It is. It is. Story of survival and revenge for the most part. Now, what about?
Leonardo seems to love those films, because he did The Count of Monte Cristo and The Man in the Iron Mask. Not The Count of Monte Cristo. He did The Man in the Iron Mask.
Right. But he was much younger then when he did that. This is him being a little bit more discerning as far as roles that he wants to choose. So
he's determined to win the Oscar this year.
Well, I've seen probably 3 different trailers, and I kind of think this might be his opportunity.
Mine.
I did see, now they've
Good
got
thing
Will
he's
Smith.
white.
They've got Will Smith. What?
I said good thing he's white.
Yeah, not a single African American nominated.
For what? Best Supporting Actor?
For
Any of the
Academy
acting roles.
Awards.
Oh, I thought we were still on the Golden Globes, though. I was talking about the Golden Globes.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, still,
Oh.
good thing he's white.
Because Will Smith is sitting there for concussion, which I saw. So
Did he win?
no.
Yeah, I rest my case.
I don't know what to say. I'm kind of abacked by that. Okay. Oh,
That's for another show.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's for another show. And it's a good point.
yeah. Okay. So
Academy Awards?
sure. Let's jump to the Academy Awards. Okay. Who's nominated? Well, for Best Picture, we've got The Big Short, Bridge of Spies. Let's see here. Brooklyn, Mad Max, Fury Road, The Martian, Revenant, The Room, and Spotlight.
Now, you see, I don't understand why Mad Max is selected for any of this stuff.
Me either. I didn't think it was that great a film.
Unless it's just, you know, the guy who made it, George Miller.
Yeah.
You know, he's been a part of pop culture, movie culture for a long time, and with his bloodthirsty stuff that he's done over the years. And so this might be just a bow to him saying, wow, we may not like your stuff, but you're always doing something and you're making people come to the movies. In that case, then there's other ways of nominating him and awarding him and recognizing that. But I don't think after seeing that film, I don't think it deserves anywhere on this list.
So any of these films, both you and Karen, any of these films that are aforementioned, do you think has a good chance of winning?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, any one of them could win. Revenant seems to be the leading contender going in.
Yeah.
I mean, it won the Golden Globe for Best Drama, and that's
It's got 12 nominations here, so.
right. That's the bellwether. That's one of the bellwethers for the Academy Awards, and you know, I mean, they've got Leonardo DiCaprio, who's like, it's about time, Leonardo, it's about time I won an Oscar, DiCaprio, you know, going all out. It's like, okay, this is the role and this is the picture, so it could happen. Although you don't always get that kind of symmetry, and just because you want it doesn't mean you'll get it. They could screw him over and sort of not give it to him, even though he might deserve it this year, and then give it to him like in another 5 years for something really stupid that he's done. Just ask Paul Newman.
Oh, there's a lot of actors out there that have gotten a lot of Academy Awards because of being disappointed at another prior event. So
Right.
there's a long list of that.
Yeah.
Even a good person in that regard would be also Denzel Washington for what was it?
He won for Training Day and should have
Training
won for
Day,
Malcolm X.
Right, Training Day. I didn't even like that movie that much, me personally, and it definitely he did a good job, but not Oscar worthy. So you never know. So, but that's the thing about the Oscars and any award show. And you know, the thing about it, in my opinion anyway, is you're looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the nominations that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
it's always interesting. It's always interesting too, Greg, to add to what you're saying, to take a look at films that aren't seen that broadly. They're a couple of showings here and there, but when it comes around, you're wondering, why wasn't this thing out there, and why didn't this thing get nominated? Because it's a gem, and
Right.
we've seen that happen many times in the past. And for one reason or another, the film doesn't sell to the right audience, doesn't it doesn't sell the right product. I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody involved in the film, got somebody else angry, and so they refused to, acknowledge the existence of this film. But for whatever reason, there are a lot of films out there that didn't even make any list.
Right.
Yeah, that's too bad. Well, you guys, as much as I hate to do this, we are running out of time here. Any last words or comments about? Well, we might as well go with what's coming in the future, the upcoming Oscars that you're looking forward to, that you think will change your mind.
We didn't talk about the actresses.
Yeah, we're just running out of time, and
Well, why don't we close by talking about the actresses real quick?
Okay.
Okay. Who are they? And who might they be?
Well, for the actresses in a leading role, we have Cate Blanchett as in Carol. We have Brie Larson in Room, Jennifer Lawrence in Joy. We have Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years. And forgive me if I'm saying the young lady in Brooklyn, the movie Brooklyn, Sonoris Rahman. And then, did you want me to go supporting actresses as well?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, we have Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight. We have Rooney Mara in Carol. We have Rachel McAdams in Spotlight. We have Alicia Vikander in The Danish Girl, and we have Kate Winslet in Steve Jobs.
Okay.
So, it's funny. My favorite category is actually the supporting actresses, as far as the quality of the actresses that I see here. I'm liking pretty much everybody in there. And I'm a big fan of Cate Blanchett. But I haven't seen Carol yet. So I have seen Joy with Jennifer Lawrence.
You didn't like that movie.
Didn't like the movie. I like Jennifer Lawrence in it, but I didn't like the movie. I really
like the movie. I like the movie, and I like Jennifer Lawrence, but I don't know that this is the movie for which she should be getting an Oscar. And I say that as a fan of the movie and her performance in the movie.
I look at it. That movie like this. She's doing, and just like in last year's film that she was in that got all the buzz.
The Hunger Games.
No, the American Hustle.
Oh, American Hustle, yes.
Yep.
Right. She's really, really, really trying to get away from the Hunger Games, and she's trying to show that she can appeal to an audience that is not just teenagers.
Right.
She's a good actress. She
is a good actress. I actually like her as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, probably Best Supporting Actress, I'm thinking that The Danish Girl supporting actor is my guess is the front runner for that particular award. And for Best Actress, I guess Cate Blanchett, possibly, maybe Brie, I can't remember her last name, but the woman who was in
Brie Larson in Room.
Could be a dark horse, could be a surprise announcement. She's not really that well known. Ruben's not getting huge box office, so that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
In terms of nabbing the award.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my take. As the only woman on the show.
And you didn't rant.
I'm about to.
Well, we don't have enough time for that this time, ladies and gentlemen. But we appreciate you listening to our total rant throughout the whole show, and we hope that you come back and listen to us again here on A Real Point of View. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Here on Google Plus. Excuse me.
Bless you again.
They come in threes for me most of the time. But again, here on Google Plus and also our YouTube channel at A Real Point of View on YouTube. So if you get an opportunity to go to our Blog Talk Radio, A Real Point of View under Blog Talk Radio / Gregory Morgan, and listen to our archive of our radio podcast, and go to our YouTube channel for A Real Point of View and Google Plus for A Real Point of View to listen to any archives and or this any future broadcasts from our crew here with me, Karen, and Larry. So thanks again for listening and watching. And if you have any comments, if you notice that we have our Twitter handles here, please send us a comment, or if you have questions or any subjects that you want us to cover. And also you can leave comments either on Facebook, our Facebook page, which is A Real Point of View. We also have our Twitter accounts here, me at The Real Movie Guy, Karen. She's here at Katie Movie Maven. And Larry, what is your new one? Because you've got a new handle, don't you? On Twitter?
I do, and off the top of my head, I can't remember it, and just, a couple hours ago I was there and doing stuff. So I'll know it for you next time, okay, ladies and gentlemen?
And so we'll end the night by saying, enjoy the movies. We hope that we've made an impression on you on some of the movies that we've discussed, especially the one of not seeing the Fantastic Four. And
don't do it.
Don't do it. And as Larry says, stay away from Steve Jobs. Read the book, but don't watch the film. But all in all, we want you to enjoy the films, and we hope that we've made an impression on some really good films for you to watch. So thanks again for listening to us here on A Real Point of View, and please join us again next week as we try to journey into another subject and try to find some films that we think will be great for you, the viewing audience. So take care, and thanks for listening, and make sure you get out to the movies, everybody. Bye-bye now.
See ya.